Hey everyone, my name's Adam. Thanks for coming tonight to hear Roy Fowler and Mary Heilmann speak at Fort Gansevoort. I'm fortunate enough to have met Roy through Mary. Mary I met in 2002. Roy I think I met a couple of years ago, and I've hung with Mary quite a bit, and I always looked and wondered about a painting that she has of Roy's, and finally I asked Mary whose work it was and reached out to Roy, and now we're have a beautiful show of his work at the gallery. So thank you for spending most of the summer making all this beautiful work, and thank you for being my old pal and for introducing me to Roy. And thanks to all you guys for coming out. They're going to speak for a while, and then we're just going to invite you downstairs if you want some water or some wine, if you're planning on staying for Alexis's talk. We prefer that you go downstairs so we could run a lot of the furniture up to the third floor and set up for Alexis's talk, which should take place at 8:30. So I'll let these two take over, and enjoy.
Well, thank you for coming tonight, and if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to try and make a brief statement about waves and about why I titled my paintings after constellations. Waves have been around in one form or another since the beginning of the universe, and along with other phenomena that we know of, light and gravity, for example. And when we think of constellations, we think also in kind of a cosmic and distant time frame. And the star constellations, they kind of they spark our memories, and we attribute mythological names to them. And I try and align those with the different characters in my paintings. And ocean waves, I think, have been around since there's been water on our planet. You know, as soon as the first rock rose above the surface of the ocean, I'm sure there was a wave that was there to crash into it in the form of surf. And waves were around at the beginning of life, when life issued from the steaming vents of the ocean floors. And waves were around for the dinosaurs, for the meteors, for the volcanoes. And they're here now in our age of the Anthropocene age, the age of the era of the sixth mass extinction. And they're going to be here when we're gone. So it's funny to think of waves in political terms, but you know, since they form in our oceans, we really have a personal connection to them. Because everybody knows that we're 60% water, salt water ourselves. And as you know, as we're hearing from the Native Americans in Black Rock, North Dakota, water is life. And when we poison the water, we're poisoning our lives. So I think it's a good thing to pay attention to water and to pay attention to the oceans, which are the sustain life on our planet. So I'd also like to say just a word of introduction for our guest. In 1986, I asked the curator Fred Hoffman who he was interested in, and he said that I should go check out Mary Heilmann, who was having a show at her first show at Hearn's Gallery on the Lower East Side. And I went to see the show, and the paintings there remain amongst my favorites in Mary's catalog of works. They were red, yellow, and blue, and black and white. And I remember they were really basic, very simple, to a point. But then they refused to kind of give up the final logic of their construction. And it kind of reminds me of what a friend said of Emily Dickinson's poems, that there's always one line in her poems that is completely abstract and that keeps you from from an easier complete translation. And so as a result, ultimately her poems are really unknowable. And I met Mary, I guess she was giving a talk at, and she was describing being at a friend's beach house at Miramar Point in Santa Barbara. And they were able to look right out their windows at the ocean and see all the kids surfing. And I approached her after the talk, and I mentioned that I was probably one of those kids. And because I used to spend literally every moment when I wasn't at school at the point, either surfing or hanging around the fire, which we had kind of built and kept going to keep ourselves warm in the winter because there weren't any wetsuits then. So I have kind of a list of people that we've kind of talked about over that time period in the 1960s, Mary and I. And we can talk about them or not, but they're Jeff White, who was nicknamed White Owl, who went to UCSB with Mary, and who I knew as a surfboard builder and surf shop owner in Santa Barbara. Richard Serra, who went to UCSB. Reynolds Yater, who is a surfboard builder and fisherman in Santa Barbara. Ocean Beach, San Francisco. Tijuana, Hammond's Reef, the Hawaiian Islands. Peter Volkos, who Mary studied with in Berkeley, and Ron Nagel, also at Berkeley. And finally, hippies versus beatniks. So,
Hippies versus
yeah. So, I asked Mary when we were walking up here if she remembered how White Owl got his nickname.
He was really tall and really thin and really brown.
And blind?
Brown.
Or was he blind?
No, he wasn't.
I thought I wasn't blind.
Not blind. He was a surfy. And he kind of looked like a big long cigar. And so they called him White Owl. I think that's why.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just funny to me. He was, there were just two people who built surfboards in Santa Barbara then, maybe three. He was one of them, and he was, another generation older than I was, and we all the kids kind of looked up to him, and we thought, I always thought it was kind of this mystical assignation, White Owl, but I didn't find out until I talked to Mary that it was because he was 6'4" and he was skinny as a cigar.
I went to Santa Barbara when let's see, I got out of high school here, in San Francisco. And I was really bad in high school. I got all C's, so I couldn't really get into any college. I wanted to go to Stanford because my mom went there, but no, that wasn't going to happen. And I went to junior college for a couple of years, and then I wanted to go to Santa Barbara. I worked really hard at City College and got into Santa Barbara. In 50s, like 59 or something. And I went to Santa Barbara because this girl that we always took the bus to school with, like the city bus, was really beautiful tan, and said, "Where have you been?" And she said, "Oh, I'm hanging out in Santa Barbara. It's really cool there. And there's tons of surfers there." Tons of surfers back in those days wasn't really that many, you see. Not like now. So I told my mom I wanted to go to Santa Barbara because it was a really good school for education, to learn how to be a teacher. And I got in. So then I went there. And decided to be an English major. And that guy that had the house on the beach was one of the teachers, and we would have class there. Drive all the way down from Isla Vista to Miramar Beach, which was a cool beach for surfing also.
Mhm.
Then, when Roy heard me give this talk about Santa Barbara and everything, he showed me this picture of him, this little guy on a surfboard. I guess you were 7 or something. And he lived right down the road there.
Yeah. I started when, in Santa Barbara, half the people who surfed were dentists, and so
Why?
I had a surfing dentist. I think the schedule, something to do with the scheduling. They had a lot of time off. They could make their own hours.
And they were
But-
really bad dentists. No, just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. So there was a dentist whose son was a friend of my older brother's, and so that's how it came into my life. The dad was a surfer. His son was trying to be a surfer, and my older brother was a surfer. So I would get all my brother's hand-me-down surfboards. We had I think that picture you're talking about. I'm, like this big and on my brother's hand-me-down homemade balsa surfboard that he coated with fiberglass and didn't sand the edges. So it was, completely sharp and it was a nightmare. And actually that was my second one. My first one was, maybe a 5 or 6 foot tall styrofoam board that we got at Sears. And I was thinking, boy, those were really cool. I wish I had one now. They broke really easily, but they were really light.
Nice, yeah, I never heard of that.
Yeah, so that's how it sort of came into my life through the dentist and my older brother, and I think even then, guys went to UCSB because there was good surf in the neighborhood.
And it was really good way back then because there were hardly any people out. It wasn't like now at all. And the big spot was down the road toward LA was Rincon, which had a big point going out. And people did come from all over to go to that beach. And let's see, the way it fit in with going to school was, well, I know there was one house over in Isla Vista where a few surfies lived, and they would put a sign up, and if it said 6 hot and glassy, that meant it was a good idea to go to the beach. Now, I must confess, I was not a surfer. I tried it, I wanted to try it, and so I didn't have a car, so I borrowed a board from one of the kids in the school and carried it down the beach just a little, right near where the school was. And so I tried it out. It was really, really hard. Nobody was showing me how or teaching me because I wanted to just surprise everybody and just be out in a few days jumping up on the board. So I didn't tell people that I was just trying to figure it out. And then,
Never heard that one.
yeah, and I couldn't borrow a board from a guy unless, all guys too, that was the other thing, no girls, unless it was really cold out. Because every other time there'd be people going surfing, and a lot of times they didn't go out when it was cold because they didn't have wetsuits then.
They didn't.
And so I gave up. So for me, surfing's a spectator sport. When I was a kid, I body surfed and surfed on a surf mat. But and then when I moved back to New York and started going to the beach in Long Island, the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean is totally different for me from the Pacific. So I'm body surfing, swimming around. I'm not body surfing. And so there's this big rip that starts dragging me down the beach, and I didn't really have any experience with that. And so now I don't go in the Atlantic Ocean too much anymore to swim.
Yeah, I hear about the rip. I've never really experienced it here, but I hear that every year people die from the rip. And I have a friend sitting in the back, Paul, has told me a story about being carried for miles down the beach in the Hamptons, unable to escape the rip. And
Yeah, there's all strategies for getting out of it, but, you know, I didn't get it, so. I was done with the Atlantic. And this isn't so long ago, but, you know, it was a good idea.
Well, you know, it's funny because when you mentioned that, you know, 6 feet hot and glassy, that really was the magic number, because that, you know, that meant that, you know, it was probably, even though it was December, it could be like, you know, 80 degrees in Santa Barbara, and there really are magic days where there's just not a breath of wind, glassy, so the surface of the ocean is, you know, like glass. And, you know, when, you know, somebody asked me the other night here if I have all these different blues to describe different water temperatures, and I pretty much said, well, no, I go to the paint store and I try and find the most beautiful blues I can, and I use them, and you know, and sometimes they remind me of things, sometimes they don't. But I did find that the cerulean blue makes hot and glassy.
Yeah.
and that you know, we both talked about William Finnegan's book, The Barbarian Days, and his wonderful descriptions of surfers. And I, a passage in his book that I really love is him describing just sort of paddling over the top of a giant wave in Hawaii and having the offshore wind blow the top off the wave, and just all the water showering down on him on the other side. And I think cobalt blue can do that. so there's I think if you're a writer, your job is to make those things happen, to, you know, have those descriptions carry weight. And I think if you're a painter, you're kind of lucky when those things happen. They're kind of serendipitous, and when they show up, you can't necessarily make them happen, but they happen.
A lot of times the waves are brown,
That's true.
most of the time. Well, it depends on where you are. But, so I've been trying to, and I do paintings of waves too, not so much lately, but I have. And it's hard, you know, that's one reason I don't do it that much. But I've been trying to get that brownish green, and then the little blue comes through color. And so when I get it, maybe Adam will show. Get that weird brown that you can see through.
Yeah.
But the thing about looking at these that's so brilliant, they remind me of Japanese wave paintings too, which I love, like, I guess Hokusai, big wave paintings. I really have the feeling, like you do in a surf movie, of actually being in there. And if I really chill and meditate and let, you know, all the distractions go away, I can even feel scared. I love these paintings. I think they're really, well, they're like words. When you see them lined up like this, they feel like, you know, that they're saying something. They're not the same. Well, depends on what you're thinking about and how you're looking at it. It could be the same way. But I would love to know, like, how you do them.
Oh, well, you know,
I can tell from the edge that it's not all blue under there.
no, it's mostly blue.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just as an aside, there's Adam has found these guys that have this archive of surfing magazines upstairs, and there's some really old ones, and you know, my inspiration kind of comes from, you know, being a kid and getting these in the mailbox, and so I kind of have one here that you know, that you know, I found that's like from 1962 or something that I remember. And I mean, like the colors of the waves are really kind of imprinted on my imagination. And it took me years to realize it's really the printers who are printing the magazines that make those colorful blues. But I think by then it was too late, and I think that, for me, and that's really the inspiration for, how I pick my colors, is to just get these nice, beautiful blues, as nice as I can. So, I can, often I'll start with like an ad in a magazine where there's a wave in the background and there's like the bathing suits or shoes or something, and get rid of all that and just end up with the background, and I'll kind of take it from there. And I make watercolors from those, and I'll sort of figure out things like where the sky is reflecting on the water, and the sky color reflects, and there's other facets of the chop where you can actually see down through the water, and the light goes down and refracts off the sand bottom, and that's usually when the waves are really turquoise. And so anyway, I'll try and work out those things.
Wow.
And then also try and kind of figure out the cropping and have the composition, I guess, simply put, and kind of translate the what's photographic realism into like a more gestural arabesque situation that lives more in the realm of painting. And so then I've got the watercolors, and then and then I make paintings that are this size from the watercolors, and there's a process where you can't really take it directly from watercolor to oil paint, because the watercolors are all transparent, and it's just all the different layers do different things that oil paint really can't do. And if it can, I'm kind of not interested in that, right? So, I figure out the shapes and the different kinds of marks that will describe the situation, and then
Do you take pictures of them? Of waves?
Yeah, I do.
And you look at your pictures?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's what I do too.
Yeah, I take pictures, and it's fun now with the digital cameras. You can kind of be a terrible photographer and kind of edit
Fix
it.
it up.
Yeah, make something that sort of works. But, and then finally I'll enlarge them into the paintings that are up on the top floor.
I love living at one of mine. It's bigger, about half again as big as one of these, I think. And it's right in where I'm sitting all the time. Not in my studio, it's in my living room, my house in the country, and I love looking at it a lot. And it actually, it stays alive. It keeps moving for me because it moves in my, oh yeah, that's an interesting thing. I'm looking at these and I'm imagining how it was moving before, how it is now, and what it's going to do next. The way, like this could keep me happy all day. I wouldn't have to do anything else except look at these waves. And it sort of like goes along with meditating in a way, because it just takes over and you don't start really thinking about anything else. Same thing with the other one. People are always coming in and then getting into it and having a lot to say about it, but the way it is like really moving, even though it's just sitting there on the wall, I like about these one at a time. Well, looking at all, 6 of them at once, that's another whole nother thing. And another big memory of mine from Santa Barbara was the surfing movies. And so I'm there like in the 60s, early 60s, the beginning of surfing movies. And so guys would come, and one guy I remember, this is all I remember, and it was in some little rec center in the basement. We're all crowded in there. The movie is black and white. And the guy stood in front of it and told the story of what we were looking at while the movie played. It was amazing, and it was a really cool scene. There were a lot of, mostly guys, so that's another thing I liked about it. Surfing movies.
Yeah, well, they came, those were big events. Like they came and we would see them in the high school auditorium. And you're right, the guys who made the surf movies, one of them was the guy who made this surfer magazine. They would come and they would stand in front of the audience, and it was just, the screen would go up and it would inevitably start with like some giant crashing wave from Hawaii, which none of us, had ever, as kids, had ever seen.
Really
And,
high.
yeah, and then there'd be these tiny little surfers just sort of falling and crashing into each
You might have
other.
been there when I was there.
Maybe, yeah. And so we would all just freak out, and we were so scared that by the end of the movie we were so excited to go surfing. And then we'd go out and, like especially in summertime, Santa Barbara is all fog and no surf. So we would come out of the movie theater, and it was such a come down,
Wait till September, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The water
then-
got warm too.
Yeah, and then as we grew up, we figured out, well, we can just go
It's
to
worth
Hawaii
it.
and
Over Hawaii,
yeah, and find those waves and learn how to surf them.
Yeah, because all Southern California is kind of not happening in the summer. Even if you go to San Diego.
Yeah, there's places, but yeah, it's hard.
Let's see, oh, I know. You had a big brother, so did he subscribe to those surfing magazines?
We both did,
Oh.
right from the first issue on.
Even when you were little, you still what?
Well, they started in about 1960, I think, and
Yeah.
so I was maybe 8.
8.
And, yeah, I was.
And then you went out when you were 8.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And jump up on board as a little guy?
Yeah, well, I started on, a lot of people are probably familiar with those canvas rafts that kind of have pontoons, the 4 pontoons, and they're,
Yeah.
about this big.
They're like a mattress.
Yeah, and, I learned how to surf by standing up on those and
Oh,
riding
you
the waves.
stood up on it?
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
And I thought for years, did I really do that? How did I do that?
Yeah,
And
that's a
then-
good question.
Yeah, but then, my family finally sent me this picture, and, even though the mats are about as big as one of these paintings, I was like, 1/4 the size of the mat, so, I was this big, so it was really, I would get on the mat, I wouldn't even make a dent in it, so.
Oh, I see. You
Yeah.
were right on top of it.
Yeah,
Well, that's a good image. That's great to think about.
so. And it
You
was-
see, you don't see little guys like that on beaches very much anymore. Maybe you find a beach where they are, yeah.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah.
Especially in Hawaii.
Yeah.
The kids are so young when they're surfing now, and they're so good by the time they're 10 or 12 years old that it's just
On boards, not
shocking.
mats. On boards.
Yeah, just as, surfing circles around the older guys. But, it's also nice how you were saying you could watch these forever, because that's kind of what it's like to actually be on the beach. And like I can just watch waves forever.
Uh-huh.
There's something about it, like just trying to, and I think William Finnegan kind of talks about that too, like how, you can look at one surf spot and kind of get to know it for your whole life, like seeing what it does at a high tide or a low tide, or in the winter or in the summer, or when there's sand comes in, there's just there.
It's kind of a neat way
They
to grow
always-
up.
Yeah, they always change, and you accumulate that knowledge, and that's.
And you can hear it, the beautiful sound. Yeah, we lived in San Francisco where it's really cold, and and there was a whole scene about that in San Francisco. The sound, I'm remembering how cool the sound was, or how loud the sound was.
Did he take you to the beach with him?
Yeah, we went, and actually, this is something they did. It was a big thing, like a great big pillowcase, and they put it in the water, and then they shake, and then they run down the beach and fill it up with air, and use that to surf on.
Oh.
You never saw that? Nah, I never saw that.
Never saw it.
I'm not making
think
that
I've-
up.
No, I think I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Oh, you have heard of it, good. It's-
So I want to know what kind of bathing suit your dad wore.
Daddy, what's, good question. It would be like some kind of wool maybe, and tight, like underpants, you know?
Just the shorts, not the full.
No, oh no, it was after that, and it wasn't boxer shorts. It was a tight bathing suit, like what you wear to race.
Well, I mean, you guys should know how awesome that is that her dad did that, because it is effing cold in San Francisco. I mean, the water temperature there is frigid, and to go out in your bathing suit is,
No, and he was a redhead, so he's all white and freckly all over. Oh, this is me. And then one time, the three of us, my brother and me and my mom, were sitting on the beach, and he didn't show up for a long, long time. And it was because he got caught in, and he didn't call it a rip then, he called it anyway, he got pulled out. And he did get no lifeguards, nothing like that. He got back. I don't think he went anymore after that. And then we moved to LA. And then I never saw my dad surf in LA. But we did, my brother and I.
well, you know, I was just reading recently that your dad was an architect,
No, he was an engineer.
or an engineer. Uh-huh.
Yeah. We moved to LA for him to build tunnels and bridges, and it was in the 40s, right after the war. And that's a good story. It was really, really fun living in LA.
Did you ever think of going in the family business?
Yes, I told my daddy when I was about 8 or something, I wanted to be an architect, and he said, no, girls can't do that.
Yeah.
And he was pretty right. He said they just make you sit in an office in a great big room, drawing plans. So I gave up that idea. But he's always looking at houses and buildings in LA, driving around. It was amazing.
Well, you probably don't know this, but my grandfather was an architect, and my mother's two brothers were, and my stepdad was this too, and so, I mean, I kind of thought of going in the business too, and I did spend a summer inside drawing plans.
Oh, at a job. You got a job.
At a job, yeah, you know, like, you know, when I was in high school. And,
The hard thing about being an architect is you have to deal with the people you're building the building for. The house, I mean, you wouldn't really think, oh, I want to build a house. But, yeah, you have to be a diplomat to be an architect. Do any of you guys have anything to say or ask or what?
I know you two went to Hawaii together in like 1990, 1991, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that trip.
okay.
Yeah, we went on 2 trips. One, the first one, the 2 of us went. The next one, you came along too, right?
Yeah.
Around
I think it was-
95.
And
Yeah.
Andy Bartle.
I know Mary
That's right.
made paint, like little watercolors
Oh,
of
yeah.
that trip, and were you surfing the whole time, Roy? Like, I'm dying to know.
No, I was making
Were
watercolors
you making
too.
them too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were, because we had this really
Yeah, we
cool
were-
place to stay, right on the water.
Uh-huh, yeah, and that was the winter, like Christmas, New Year's, 1994 and 95.
That's
And,
right, I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, we had a place right on the water on the North Shore of Oahu, and yeah, we'd make watercolors. It was a perfect spot to paint, you know, because the ocean was just right there, and there was all these pretty plants.
Then you went in once in a while.
Yeah, I've been in every day.
Yeah, and
I would
it's-
steal the rent car. If we had one car.
for everybody, right.
Yeah.
It's in January is when they have the surfing contest for the big waves in Hawaii, down in Waimea Bay. And that was one reason, although the where they get the waves is so far out that you really can't see from the beach, right? I don't remember being able
Right,
to
yeah.
see very well.
Yeah, yeah.
That was fun though, I wouldn't mind going back there. You've been back.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
well,
guys go.
you know, we found the place because Mary's niece went to school with someone who lived in Hawaii, and
Yeah.
she kind of put this up. And then when we went back the following year, a friend of Mary's niece by then had bought this house, a beach house that turned into they used as a rental, and we were the first ones to rent it. And yeah, Melissa came along, and Andy Bartley and his brother Chris, and we all shared this.
Yeah, I remember that, that was good.
And I go back every year now that, you know, our friends have moved into the house that was a rental, and you know, I don't know if you remember, but on our first trip, they had just had their first child, and they were celebrating his 1-year birthday, which is kind of a big deal in Hawaii, and so they had this huge party, and all these like surfers like Peter Cole, and,
Yeah.
and you know, her dad's Hawaiian, so there were a lot of Hawaiians.
And he's in Yale now, right?
Harvard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of those, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All three boys have grown up, and it's really fun because I'm Uncle Roy, and I just love getting like the Facebook messages, you know, hey Uncle Roy. It's nice.
I thought that was interesting what you said about that one of the viewers was saying that the different paint color suggested the temperature. And not being a surfer, of course, there's a whole other way of looking at these paintings as a phenomenon of nature, and it doesn't have to do with experiencing what surfing is, but it has to do with experiencing sort of the ongoingness of nature and that the kind of the amazing force of it, and participating in that. So the temperature thing, to me, it really makes a lot of sense. Like there's one, maybe like this one. It seems to me it's a cold place. It's a colder water, and so just experiencing the kind of that the color suggests an actual physical sensation of the viewer.
Yeah.
Of the viewer that's not necessarily, you know, a surfer thinking about what it's like to be in the barrel, but a person who's looking at these as a sort of iconic form. You're talking about constellations. These are both real iconic forms in our consciousness, that spiral form, the continuation of the spiral. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting that somebody made that observation.
Yeah, that's good. I love these. I could just, it's like a movie, actually. It's not like they're still. And I'm thinking one at a time, although I do get into looking at them as like a bunch of different breaks in the same spot.
Well, you know, I remember going to the show of Andy Warhol's shadow paintings at the Heilmann Friedrich Gallery on West Broadway. Remember that?
Yeah.
And Andy Warhol was there signing autographs. And I was kind of too young and shy to ask for one, but I kind of never forgotten how those paintings just wrapped all the way around the gallery. And I don't know, I guess somehow, it's just somehow in my consciousness, and it's probably shaped these.
How this is
Or,
instilled.
yeah, and the way I've worked on a lot of occasions.
And this is cool looking at this way in a line like this, and then, you know, upstairs too.
As far as the water temperature, I think that may be true, but I can never figure out which ones are the warm ones and which ones are the cold ones. So
Well,
But
that
I
comes
don't
and
think
goes.
it matters, but I
Yeah.
just think that's an
That comes and
interesting thing to
goes.
say, because
Yeah.
it has to do with looking at it as actual water rather than looking at it as a wave. Do you know what I mean? So it takes it outside of being a surfing phenomenon to being a force of nature phenomenon, which I guess surfing is too, but.
That's right. Yeah, the
it-
surfer isn't
yeah,
there.
Yeah,
You gotta put them there. Or you put yourself there. And that happens as you hang with them.
well, I think also it's sort of, again, a way to be close in on something that you would never be close in on. I mean, there's
That's right.
not any way that, you know, I'd be swimming around right here.
No.
So, the idea, you know, again, it becomes this sort of like large cosmic thing, you know, it's like the constellation or something. It's just that you don't necessarily see yourself in relation to that because its scale is of a magnitude that's very extreme, both visually and philosophically.
Yeah,
It's a big idea.
and kudos to the surf photographers who were really the first ones to make this kind of image. And you know, one thing I liked about these is, working with these, is that this image just showed up in the mid-20th century, you know, it wasn't around before then. So it was really those guys who would just swim out in the water with their cameras, you know, and photograph surfers who really, you know, that's when you started seeing these things. So, yeah, I really, you know, think of these as a tribute to those guys. And speaking of, Adam has managed to get a really great surf photographer, Jeff Devine, who has been photographing, I think he's now the, you know, the photographic editor for one of the magazines, and he's been around since the 1970s, 60s, 70s, shooting really great photographs. And he's going to give a slideshow and a talk here in about a week. So he's kind of had a style that we all knew. He would shoot the bonsai pipeline, and he always had a rainbow that went over the whole lineup and all his
That
editors.
he put in every time?
Well, that was sort of his trademark,
Uh-huh.
and all the editors would kind of roll their eyes and go, "Oh yeah, another Jeff
Another
Devine."
nice, because he put it in with Photoshop.
No. This.
Oh, you'd
this-
always get a
This
rainbow.
was the '70s, yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, in Hawaii, there's
Oh, in the 70s, right, we didn't have any Photoshop.
yeah, and besides, rainbows are kind of, they happen all.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay, duh, sorry. Yeah,
Hey Roy, in this one, I can imagine that I'm looking up from underwater for some. Maybe it's the scale of the shape.
yeah, I could see that. I could go there.
Yeah.
You see that once in a while, right?
I think I know what you mean, like maybe, like with the diagonal being the.
So that would
the
be light
surface of
coming
the
from,
water.
light from.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it,
Oh, a little hole of light
Yeah.
while you're under the water.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that happens.
Oh, wow, I like that.
Get busy, make some more.
Yeah, so it's just a whole different perspective than
Yeah.
looking up instead of sideways.
Mhm.
Nice.
You gotta read this Finnegan book, because that happens in the,
And, yeah, and also another plug for Adam's gallery that William Finnegan is going to be reading here on November 9th, I think, day after the elections.
you better get here really early. So Jackie, what were you gonna say?
You had mentioned earlier, you were thinking about the sound of the wave.
Yeah.
And in these paintings, and I think about your work, there is something very sort of, you used the word cosmic before, some very experiential about that. And I've never spoken to you about where sound fits into your relationship to painting. Do you, for instance, listen to anything in the studio when you're working? Do you think of certain sounds?
Yeah, I do, not so much lately for some reason, but music is a big part of my thinking. And a lot of the paintings are about music, so I listen to a lot of music and think about it a lot. I don't listen to music all the time the way I used to, which is weird. I've just kind of gotten into a different kind of silent space. but often I'm thinking about it, even though I'm not hearing it. And the logic of how stuff is full at some place and then empty, and a lot of that logic is relates to pauses and movement in music. Yeah.
I really love the geometry in your paintings and how that,
I'm big into geometry.
yeah, and how that manifests itself in waves.
It's so crazy, yeah. Oh, and yeah, and curved geometry is really a cool kind of geometry too. And I can sit there in the studio for like hours working out the alleged math to do something, and I think I'm not crazy. Yeah, because I do eventually do something.
So you actually work with numbers and portions and?
No, just shapes, and sometimes I get out a ruler and measure stuff to see long and short and that type of stuff, but,
Like I know you have like paintings with hidden squares and squares that are, you know, kind of more overt.
in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of like looking at these and looking at the math in these, which is all about curves.
You used to have the grid more prominent or visible.
Yeah, yeah, I would kind of see through more, and I just let it. And
Oh, there's a grid under there?
yeah, I mean, it's a practical grid. It's you know, an enlarging grid. That's how I go.
Oh, because you got some little ones to start with.
Yeah,
little
that's how I go
pictures.
from the watercolors up to the,
Oh.
you know, to the big paintings. It's just an
I
enlarging
didn't
grid.
know that, that's good to know.
Yeah, and the grid's still in the watercolors. And it's still in these, if you look for them. But having the grid there, I guess I've kind of gotten to, there's all the squares in the grid, and I kind of paint each square separately, so it's like, you know, making a bunch of small paintings.
So you make it
That's what
disappear.
is.
By painting.
I guess, or sometimes it kind of makes it come there even more.
Wow, I didn't know about that part, that you really actually cheated. Just kidding, just kidding.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
No, I forgot what I was gonna say. It was a really smart thing too.
Yeah. No, I don't start from scratch. I just, you know, I make a big painting, just all at once. There's studies, and I work from the studies. And like the ones upstairs, they take about a week to just kind of painting all day, every day to make them.
Hey, why don't we casually go upstairs and not be formally sitting here anymore, but kind of wander around a little bit? Good idea, Adam, and then
Maybe downstairs first?
downstairs
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be fun to
I
look
mean,
at,
if you guys want to take a quick run through upstairs.
look around up here.
There's a projector in front of Roy's center painting for Alexis's.
Oh, Alexis is gonna be
Yeah.
upstairs.
More than, if
Yeah.
you can quickly run through upstairs and then make your way downstairs, just so we can move the furniture up from the
Oh,
second
you're
floor.
moving this.
But that's
Well, we'll
fine, you
just
can,
go
you can run
downstairs.
upstairs. No,
I don't know, 30 minutes.
that's
All
fine.
right.
Yeah, we have time. Feel free to walk upstairs, and it's nice to see the large paintings as well.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.